your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D, as I go by from time to time, and it's great to have you with us to talk with our very special guest, who is going to give us some guidance from the universe, hopeful messages for everyday challenges. Her name, as well as being an author of that book, is Jill Amy Sager. Jill, thank you so much for joining us here on the program.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Now, you are, I guess, I don't know if I want to say it this way, by trade, a professional, and this sounds kind of strange to some folks, okay, but just get over it, folks. A professional tarot reader. You're also a channeler as well as the author of this particular book. And we're going to talk about that kind of work. I love the fact that it goes through the world of metaphysics. I am a metaphysician myself, among other things. And this is going to be an interesting conversation because I know a lot of people, everybody's got their own little twist on what is appropriate and what isn't. And I'm going to say, set that all aside, folks, because we're going to talk about all of these different things. I want to, we can dive into the aspects of channeling, or not channeling, I'm sorry, tarot reading. We'll deal with that down the road. I want to ask you a little bit about channeling, because it is said that we all are channeling. I sometimes, since my father's passing about 2 years ago, I don't necessarily feel like I necessarily channel him, but sometimes when I'm by myself and I am sort of trying to give myself a pep talk of sorts, I kind of feel as though he's coming through. What about that aspect? Because they also say, too, when it comes to a lot of the psychic abilities and all of these different metaphysical accoutrements, that we all have the capacity or the capability. It's just that we don't exercise those muscles.
Yeah, well, I agree. I don't think it's that it's not available to everybody. I just think that my experience is that there are reasons we block that the possibility to be able to get information from something that I personally cannot explain. I need to tell you, you started by mentioning that people have different ideas about what this is. I'm going to let you know, honestly, that I'm okay with skepticism. I was skeptical. I didn't come into this whole metaphysical world expecting ever to be a go-between for spirit. I never expected that I would be reading tarot cards. This is not something I grew up with or understood. As a matter of fact, The reason I started reading tarot cards, it happened in the 70s. That's a long time ago. And it was at a time when it wasn't actually as popular as it is today. I mean, today it's very popular, right?
Yeah. Oh,
NPR
yeah.
has article, right? Washington Post. I mean, the articles are out there about tarot, how popular it is. And I'm telling you this because what happened was that a friend gave me a reading. I knew nothing about it. But tarot really is a vehicle, a modality that really helps us to understand ourselves a little better. I'm not going to say it's like therapy, but it offers the similar insights.
Hmm.
Really, when we have questions and we need help to maybe guide us or we feel stuck, we pull tarot cards. It really can move us forward. I mean, that has been my experience. And because I had that experience, the very first time I had a reading in the 70s, this friend gave me a deck of cards and I studied them. Now, this whole thing about channeling and the psychic ability and all of this, I that came to me by accident. And let me also say that at the time, I think I mentioned this before, I didn't start reading tarot thinking I was going to be like a professional reader.
Hmm.
I've always had day jobs, but my skill increased, my intuition increased. My sister was telling her friends, and word of mouth grew. And I have never said no to anybody who has called me for a reading.
Hmm.
I was probably in my 30s, so I'm in my very early 20s when all this happened. And in my 30s, I met a couple of women who were what they called psychics. I started to see that was possible. Again, not believing that I would be doing it or thinking I would be doing it. But I have to say, and this is why I mentioned earlier that I think we all have the capacity, because our intuitive right side of the brain is begging for attention, right? As much as the other side of rational thinking. And over the years, I was opening that creative, intuitive side without really realizing it. Through tarot, I did become more intuitive for myself. And also, too, I was a musician, which is a creative art, right?
What instrument?
I grew up playing classical piano, and then in my early 20s, I switched to conga drums and started playing Latin style music, especially Afro-Cuban rhythms. And I did that professionally for many years. So I guess I'm just saying, I want people to know that this happened to me by accident. And when I started to hear a voice that came through, which was shocking, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I knew it wasn't my voice. I knew it wasn't my mom's voice telling me what to do.
Hmm.
I paid attention. And maybe my DNA, unlike maybe some other people, I wasn't initially afraid. I mean, it was odd, it was weird, but I wasn't initially afraid, and I started to listen.
You know, I have gone to different mediums. I've gone to people getting tarot readings. I've gone to people with many of these different modalities, as I like to call them. And I have always, from the beginning, felt not that they were giving me anything, but they were confirming what I already knew.
Mhm.
Whereas I know a lot of people, and the station that I currently work for now used to have a psychic on the program, have her own program, where she would take callers from time to time. And the way that much of what she presented was received was along the lines of, oh, this is set in stone. That's another aspect of this, that it is not, that in this moment,
Mhm.
this is what I am connecting with. But in the next moment, because the universe is constantly changing and in motion. So it's not going to be the same, a minute from now,
I
from that
absolutely
respect.
agree. I absolutely agree with that. I mean, I am not here to tell people what to do with their lives. Everyone has free choice, free will. And I agree with you. I always say, the wind blows in many different directions. And I don't actually call myself a psychic because I do believe that, especially in Western society, that label indicates, I think, for a lot of people that I can predict the future for them.
Hmm.
Not my job to do that. I tell clients who want that from me that I am not here to do that because we are human and we're going to attach expectation. If I tell somebody, yeah, John is coming back to you, definitely. You want to know whether he's going to come back to you for that, and marry you.
Hmm.
If I say yes, that person is going to be all expectation on
Hmm.
what I said, and they're going to miss perhaps Robert, who is much better for them than this guy, right? I
Hmm.
mean, I'm just a silly example,
Yeah.
but it's not up to me. And then I also say, if I say it's not going to happen, you'll be disappointed. Like you, life happens. And my work is really only about assisting people to open a door perhaps they hadn't seen, because we all feel stuck and blocked at times. And then, as you pointed out, and I agree, I think my greatest work for folks is when I validate where they're at, where they're headed, what they already know about themselves, right? We
Yeah.
do know. And sometimes all we're looking for is that validation. And
Yeah.
sometimes, absolutely, in a reading, that's what happens.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this aspect of guidance from the universe, hopeful messages for everyday challenges. We just went through a couple of events. Now, one of them goes back to November 2024. The other one just happened. As of our conversation, it just happened this previous Friday. And the first event that happened in November, huge angst across, I'm sure, across the country by a lot of people. But when this event happened on Friday, I was actually, and the phrase I used the first time I described this, I said, I felt buoyed up. I felt energized. Now, this had to do with the election of the new Pope, Pope Leo the 14th. Rather interesting. I mean, I go back to Pope John Paul II myself as far as remembrance. But there's something about this guy, not because he's an American from Chicago. There's something about him that I am very intrigued by. And I got to tell you, I would love to get this guy on my program to talk to him. Uh, and almost as a matter of fact, the first question that it came to my mind thinking about having him on my program was, why Catholicism? What is it about Catholicism that so intrigues you? I was born and raised Catholic myself. Okay. I love the ritual. I love the ceremony. I love the traditions. All right. Not a real big fan of maybe the dogma. Okay, but that's we can push that aside because there's so much more there. We get these kinds of impressions from people, whether they're you know on the public scene or otherwise. Maybe just they pass our they cross our paths throughout our in our lifetime. Is that like the beginnings, sort of when you're tapping into or wanting to learn how to access sort of that intuition, that metaphysical? I want to use the word metaphysical attributes rather than psychic, because metaphysical is broader. But is that from your perspective the sort of the beginnings of, okay, I'm getting a vibe, and that vibe is coming from somewhere. I'm not creating it.
I am not a physics major. I'm sure, quantum physics, I think, talks about this, and I need to read up on that a little bit more. But I do believe, as you're stating, that we do get hits. And it's about whether we pay attention to those or we don't. And my experience is that whether I pay attention or I don't, I'll get validation in
Hmm.
some way. And it's about being aware and looking for the validation, I think. That's the real trick with all this. How aware are we? And I think, and I will say, in the first chapter of my book, the first chapter is called Awareness is All because that's what the universe gave me. And by the way, I call what I hear and see, I get it in many different feel from the universe. I do call it guidance only
Hmm.
because it means help. It's just a word that I'm used. So when I'm, getting a hit about something, how aware am I going to be? Am I going to believe it? Am I going to push it aside? Um, that's I think where the rubber meets the road. So yeah, and I sometimes and the other piece I'm going to say about this, what you're asking about,
Hmm.
is that our intuitive sides and even getting messages from the universe, this is not rational. So what I've learned for myself in terms of especially listening to my own intuition, never mind, the universe, my own intuition, I have come to understand that I can't always explain or rationalize why I'm making the decisions I'm making, or why, as you said, I'm getting the hit I'm getting.
Mm.
That, as you said, there's something about this Pope. And I think that's the other piece that, as our human nature, especially in Western society, my experience working with many people, we're not so good at not knowing things. We want to know. We want explanations, and it's very
Hmm.
human to want that. But in this realm, and that's what I was talking about earlier about blocks. In this realm, if you want to be more aware of your hits, if you want to be more aware to receive messages from the universe, then one of the aspects I believe is being okay with not having to understand what's going on or rationalize what's going on or explain what's going on. And that's
Yeah.
not easy for all. Does that make
No,
sense? I think
it
that,
does. And especially when you consider the fact that we all want to know, we all want the answers.
yeah,
First of
right.
all, we couldn't handle. Sorry, Tom. I'm sorry for borrowing this from the movie. We couldn't handle the answers all at once. I mean, it's like we want it all now. It's kind of like that old joke. God, I want patience, and I want it now. Um,
Yep,
and
true. That's true.
yeah, and there's a line from a seminar that I attended, a workshop I attended many years ago, where people would stand up in this workshop and they would be asking questions. Well, why this and why that and why the other? And the answer that came back to them was give up the need to know why. And then they took it a little further and they said, okay, let's take this down the path here. All right, you want to know why such and such. I'll use this example. And I have never asked this question because I'm a big I'm accepting of the natural processes of life, and death, as we call it. I like to use transition, is just a natural part of that. But the question is, why did my dad die? Why? Okay, let's address that. How are you feeling right? This was how they put this. How are you feeling right now? Not knowing why. Okay, and they would express how they're feeling. All right. So if I gave you the answer as to why, how would you feel? And it's like, well, my dad is still dead and he's still not here and da 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 da. Da. I guess that wouldn't really change a whole lot. He says, then what's the point of knowing why? Now, that's not to say that there aren't instances where we can know why on certain circumstances. We'll get an answer as to why, but it doesn't really change anything. You know, the train is
Yeah,
still moving down the track, whether you understand why the train hasn't derailed, or
yeah,
something along those lines.
right. And one thing that I learned from the universe, something that they taught me, is that not knowing something, when we say I don't know, when I say I don't know,
Hmm.
initially I always felt really hemmed in by that question. Like, I don't know. And then I'm perseverating. I want to know and I get obsessive and it just narrows and narrows and narrows and narrows. And something that I learned from the universe, which totally talk about awareness, changed my perspective incredibly. I mean, it opened me up to something that was so wonderful. They taught me that I don't know is a question. And that's the wonder. And it actually, rather than it going this way and being so, minimizing my life, whenever now I don't know something, I feel it's so expansive because basically I'm saying to myself and the universe and whoever's listening, I want to know.
Hmm.
And again, with the awareness, if I want to know, I may never know, but if I want to know, that question leaves me curious. It leaves me wondering. It leaves me open to possibility. And I have found that to be, it's like a one, it's a 180. It's a complete change of how I used to view, I don't know. And now I'm all for it. I'm like, I don't know. It's great. Let's just see what happens. And
I personally, I get, and I'm working on this. Okay. I'm working on this, but I personally get annoyed when people ask me questions and I say, I don't know. And that's not good enough for them. It's like, but I don't know. Okay. And forgive me for being insensitive. I don't care. I know
yeah.
you care.
Yeah.
So Google it if that's what it takes. Google it, or find someone. I mean, I remember back with my first wife, I think it was around the new year. The priests would come to, and we lived in a trailer at the time. They would come to your home and they would bless your home. Well, the Monsignor at the church that we attended, he came to our house and he was blessing the house and and so forth with the holy water and what have you. And I took him aside and I asked him a question about the depiction of Jesus on the cross. And all of the references I've ever looked at, the final indignity was that a person who was being crucified was stripped naked. I says, how come none of the crucifixes with Jesus on them, how come he's still got a loincloth? I don't understand. He was very honest about it. I accepted his answer. It wasn't like, I don't believe you. Yeah, that's bogus. He says, no. He says, because we don't want to upset the sensibilities of the people. I'm sitting here thinking, well, wait a minute, but it says, ye shall know the truth and the truth will set you free. Why can't we know the truth? But again, I appreciated his candor with me in that regard. I didn't agree with it, but I understood it anyway. And so when we ask that question, why? I try to be as sensitive as I can to the questioner, because they're curious. Just like when I ask questions on this program and the guest says, I don't know.
Right.
And that's actually the most honest. And I'll be honest, the other thing too is for those who claim to be atheists, I say no, the more honest position to take is agnostic. You don't know. You don't know that there's no God. You don't know that there is, but you don't know that there isn't. Now, other people will say, I know there is. Great. That's their faith.
Well,
Um,
I can't speak to I can't speak to what God is or because I don't know, but I will
right.
say this. After 40 years of receiving messages from the universe and also working with people and telling them things that I couldn't possibly know about them. Like, for instance, I had a client once and I mentioned, they gave me very specific about a book that she might want to read, and she's like, "Oh, I I have it. It's been sitting on my table, right? Things like that can happen."
Yeah.
And I have that so much. Plus, the fact that I downloaded 30 messages, I have more, but my book only contains 30 messages from the universe on topics like suffering, money, time, grief. And these messages came to me. I'm not that well versed. I'm not that scholarly. I'm
Hmm.
not going to say I'm stupid, but I'm not that well read. And I don't have a lot of background in religion or understanding any of this. And to receive these messages, um, what I'm trying to get at is that I became a believer in something that was it's still way beyond my understanding, only
Hmm.
because of my experience. And that's part of why now I firmly have a foundation of hope, of optimism,
Hmm.
faith in a way that I never had growing up. My childhood was rough, like many of us. I had a lot of trauma. I grew up with a physical disability in the 60s and 70s, way before, the ADA, way before. I mean, I was seen as a retarded kid. I was not mainstreamed in school. There's a lot that I lived through, and which actually my stories are in the book, a lot about my upbringing.
Hmm.
I'm just saying that it's through my personal experience that I gained a wider understanding and this belief system now that there is something going on that is
Hmm.
we're talking about why and understanding way
Yeah.
beyond understanding, way beyond why for me. I have no idea what's going on. And when I asked the universe initially, when they came to me and with information and help and all of this for myself initially, I asked, well, who are you? What are you? What should I be calling you? And the answer came back, call us Tommy, call us Susie, call us whatever you want. A name is a vibration. And one thing I have read about that word God is that that ah sound, which is in a lot of different religions and a lot
Hmm.
of different metaphysical things, God, that is vibrationally a sound that supposedly has a huge impact in a
Yeah.
vibrational way.
Yeah.
So I'm just mentioning that's like a sidebar, but I found that to be interesting. So yeah, I just believe that, going maybe back to the original part of this conversation, that I am here to say that I really don't understand what's going on. I've said this a few times already, but I do believe we all have access. I see what the information I get and all of this maybe other side of the veil thing is really like a radio frequency that's always on. This is what I just happen to tune in. I happen to tap in. And that's why I also believe it's available to everybody. I have a friend, I'm going to go on about this, but this is kind of maybe important to say.
Hmm.
I have a friend, I met her 30 years ago. I'm not, I know this much about astrology, but she's a true Virgo. Very, very this way, very linear thinking, list maker, very rational. 30 years later of being friends with me, she now gets messages from the universe.
Mm.
She gets them all the time. I mean, I'm getting chills telling you this. So, and it happened because, she saw that I could do it. So in a way, another aspect of this is support. And we don't get a lot of that in Western society. We don't get a lot of support. I myself still say that it's weird, air quotes. I myself had a hard time for many years coming out of the closet
Yeah.
as someone who channeled. I was in my 60s when and I had quit my last day job when guidance said, you were supposed to be doing this your whole life. And I was like, well, I have. But they were like, well, no, we mean like coming out, like letting people really know, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like I said earlier, I didn't grow up with this. So I think a lot of us feel like this. And I'm just want to encourage people to be perhaps more open, less fearful, because the information coming through is love. It's all about love. And I
Mm.
even write in my book in the preface that what I'm saying is not new. A lot of people say this, a lot of people who channel, who read tarot cards, metaphysical people like yourself are all saying the same thing, that we can and need to align with love more. And
Yeah.
really, all the universe is doing is trying to help us to understand that and perhaps help us to get there more often than we do. And I can't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah. I even came close to not publishing my book because of that fact that, okay, yeah, you're saying the same thing everybody else is saying. All right, it's your words, it's the way you put them together, but it's still the same message. And I thought, well, then maybe I should put it out there because we've all had the experience of someone telling us something and we just kind of, oh, okay, fine. It could be your spouse, could be your children, a teacher, whoever. And then somebody else, totally innocuous, comes along and says exactly the same thing. You're going, oh yeah, okay. And you move forward. And then the people who have been telling you for a long time going, well, we've
Right.
been telling you that for years. Why didn't you listen to us? Because it wasn't the right person.
Right. And it wasn't the right, yeah, it wasn't said in the way that we could understand. And that is
Yeah.
actually maybe why my book is doing so well. I have to say that. And I'm saying that just matter of factly. People
Yeah.
are letting me know right and left how much they love it. And I think it's because of the way a lot of people say it is because of the way that I've expressed what guidance has had to say,
Hmm.
and also my stories that I didn't expect people would like as much as the guidance messages, the messages in the universe. But that is what is resonating with people. People are finding that they themselves see themselves in my stories, and that in a way, um, they then are inspired and can feel more hopeful for themselves. So really, it is, I agree with you. I also had that same um, resistance. Well,
Yeah.
what's the point, right? But it is obviously it was important that I put the book out and people are responding to it and needing to hear what this message is we're talking about love and optimism and hope. Hope is so important always. And to, assist people perhaps to find that for themselves as well. And also that change is possible. I do not agree with people who say that people don't change. I have changed. People I know have changed. Change is possible. And that is definitely another aspect of my book that is inspiring people, that it
Jill.
is possible to
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
and it is
Jill,
possible.
Amy Sager, Guidance from the Universe. And this is Tell Me Your Story. I find it fascinating, Jill, my guest here on the program, talking about the hopeful messages for everyday life. That's the book Guidance from the Universe. That it's funny too, as you were talking there, all kinds of things just kept coming up in my mind, and I'm going, okay, if they come back, I'll bring those up, but if they don't, I'm not going to worry too much about it. I.e., the universe asks the questions on this program. I'm just along for the ride. And I've had experiences like that where a question is nagging. It's like, no, cut it out. It doesn't have anything to do with our conversation. And it wouldn't go away. And I said, okay, to my guest, I got to stop here and I got to ask you this question because, and I would ask the question, and the interview goes off in that direction, as apparently it was designed to in that respect. And so I do find it very fascinating. And you talked about how your disability, as you were growing up in the six, and I was in school and I was born in 1960. So I am about to hit that magical moment of 65 and Medicare next month as we are conversing here. But I grew up legally blind
Mm.
through school, grade school and high school, and even into my three semesters of college and vocational school. And one of the things that I learned was that what I had was what I called a perceived limitation. It was only a limitation if I chose to let it be. And I had an experience on the job once where I was queuing up a record at a radio station, and I had programmers or their phone screeners or whoever was in the room with me as I was queuing it up. And I pulled out a magnifying glass just to double check to make sure where the needle was on the record. And they said, oh, I didn't know that you had trouble seeing because I never, because most time I was doing it solo. Nobody was in the room. But it was one of those experiences where I realized, oh, and I even got confirmation of that from a friend who he and his family lived next door to my family, my parents and us. Um, and I reconnected with one of his brothers a few years back, just a few years back. We I guess connected on Facebook, and then we started texting outside of just on our regular text app. And he let his brother know, who is my age. Hey, I reconnected with Richard, and he says, hey, and he texted his brother back The next time you talk to Richard, tell him I said hi and then there was this long text which I would pull up, but the bottom, the gist of it was that he was really impressed by the fact that in spite of or because of my visual impairment, I was still out doing everything that all the other kids in the neighborhood were doing. We were digging holes in the dirt, building forts, running around playing hide and seek, and this and that and the other thing. So he says, and I have never looked at people with uh, disabilities the same since that. And I thought, wow, I mean, I wasn't even trying to do anything. I mean, I just lived my life. And I think that's one of the things that we all need to learn is how to just live our lives. Forget about what other people are saying, what other people are doing for that matter, at whatever level they're doing it. I know it's hard because a lot of people are really drawn into social media. I'm not.
Well, I think it's hard not to take things, personally, what society thinks of us. We
Mhm.
definitely are affected by that. But, it sounds like also what you're talking about is you didn't see yourself as a victim. And I
Mm-mm.
think that that is another important aspect to all of our lives. I know for my life too, I feel as you do. I've never allowed my disability to hold me back. It's just not in my DNA to do that. And I think that I had and still have a certain amount of resilience, which is to my credit, I have to say. Not everyone has resilience.
Hmm.
But I think that something I've learned from years of doing tarot and also years, and also, from the universe, information from the universe, are all these, how do I say it? All these ways that we go through life, right?
Hmm.
Being a victim, perhaps,
Yeah.
and really, really, as you mentioned, being feeling maybe bad about ourselves. I felt bad about myself for years because of how society saw me as a woman. I was less than. I couldn't compete, in a quote unquote normal kind of way of being like
Yeah.
whatever a woman's supposed to be, not disabled for sure. And I think that something that I have come to understand, of course, through all this transformation, is how to, put all that aside. And I think that that's the beauty of using the modalities, as you said, using metaphysical modalities, whether it's tarot or oracle cards or reading my book, that can really help us to stop that external noise and to really pay more attention. I know this is what I've learned, to pay more attention to me and what's important to me, and to allow myself to have the freedom of choice, the life I want, and to learn how to do that because we are, as you're, mentioned, we're going to be influenced by outside, good and bad.
Hmm.
And I really have appreciated my own journey with help from the universe and help from tarot to understand more and more that I have that what's important is what I perceive and how I
Hmm.
live life. And I don't want to be a victim. And that does not serve me. What serves me is to be somebody who's not a victim, either through my own thoughts, which believe me, there are many days I still have the, negative thoughts, but I have learned how to cast them aside. I have tools, thank you, from the universe and tarot. I have tools to cast them aside because I no longer want to live that way.
Hmm.
I think that that you got validation from the outside from friends that said, "Hey, good on you." That's right. That's the
Yeah.
way. That's right.
Absolutely. Guidance from the universe. That's where I get mine. That's where I get these questions as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. Jill Sage is my Sager, I beg your pardon. Jill Sager is my guest here on the program, and we are talking about her book and the work that she is doing through all of the different modalities. You used two words that we don't hear an awful lot about, and this ties into this aspect that you brought up of, excuse me, of victimhood.
Mm.
Um, I fell into that for a very short time when I was 17, 18 years old. I think I had just graduated. And um, I remember the statement that really sort of was the epitome of where I was at that moment. That the state of Arizona labeled me legally blind. I didn't do this. This is on them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
And um, only for a year, I was actually receiving. I guess it was classified as disability Social Security, but it was only for a year, and then I was off it because I started working. It wasn't in radio at first. I was doing several other things along the way. I mean, even in high school as a paper boy, bicycling everywhere. A legally blind guy bicycling? Are you kidding? On Sunday mornings when the sun hasn't come up? Are you kidding? Yes, I was. Having a great time doing it too. But you used the word resilience, and I will throw in another word that epitomizes, in general, the human condition, and that's adaptation.
Mhm.
We adapt, which is part of our resilience. We adapt.
I agree. Absolutely.
But one of the other elements, though, is change. It's the constant in the universe. Matter of fact, I just finished an interview with a gentleman who does hand analysis. All right, you could call it palmistry, but he's not a palm reader, not in that sense. And he asked me the question if I thought that my palm changed. And of course, I'm thinking more literally of the physical structure and so forth. And I said, no. And he says, you're wrong. It does change. Now, he then started to talk to me about how, how when you're embarrassed or what have you, you get you flush, you get red cheeks, you of embarrassment, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Well, the hands go through the same kind of thing. They change color.
Mhm.
And I hadn't thought of that. But even my example was not correct because the cells, they're coming and going constantly. So the palm actually is changing.
Mhm.
But what was intriguing to me was, and I'm certainly always open to this, is he's called me on. He says, "No, you're wrong. It's changed. It constantly." And then he went into his explanation, and I'm going, "All right, let's burn down all my philosophical huts. I have no problem with that. If I need to start over again, I want
Mhm.
to begin in doubt and end in certainty, and not begin in certainty and end in doubt. Because in my opinion, to end in doubt is very frustrating, I'm sure. So, when we talked just a moment ago about I don't know, hey, okay, are we listening to one another? That's the other aspect of all of this too. But anyway, getting back to resilience and adaptation,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. In my book, there's a chapter called Loss. We're talking about resilience and adaptation. And I was born with one leg shorter than the other.
Hmm.
And at age 9, my parents decided to have surgery on that leg to lengthen it in order to make my legs equal size. I was wearing a lift on my shoe, and my leg was normal, but I was wearing a lift on the shoe. Well, the surgery was a failure. I ended up permanently disabled, also still with a lift on my shoe. My knee doesn't bend, my foot doesn't move. I walk with a very pronounced limp.
Mm.
Developed scoliosis, very, very, very severe scoliosis of the spine through my when I was like a young teenager, 12, 13. And I spent the ages of 9 to about 13 in and out of hospitals due to all of the surgeries. I had many, many surgeries on that leg that no longer function, nerve damage, etc. I'm telling you all this because at one point, the universe said to me, well, what has all this loss? Has this loss brought you anything? And I started to, let my mind go where it was. And I started to realize, and this is a story in my book, that, I may never have, I may never be able to reconcile all the loss. But what I learned, the positive about it, is that I am talking about resilient. I'm resilient to loss in a way that a lot of people, I have friends who are my age and older who are starting to lose different capacity, functional, body things that are happening,
Hmm.
not just in terms of how we look when we get older and there's loss
Right.
there.
Right.
Yes, my hair is gray, I have more wrinkles, but also too physically, they're in pain and they're dealing with issues. They can't walk as far, maybe, and those kinds of things that happen when we get older, back pain, etc. I've had a lifetime of this. And so for me, it's not surprising. It's not new. I am still able to go with the flow in my day to day. I don't let pain get me down, which I have plenty of it, etc. So it's that you're talking about change being expected. I mean, change is a given. Well, loss is a given. And having that loss so young really has enabled me. You see, I'm smiling. I mean, if you're not actually looking at me right now, I'm smiling. I mean, I love that I am
Yeah.
expectant of loss. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I won't grieve a loss or have an emotional, fallout because I've lost something else, like
Hmm.
the death of my dad. But I understand it. I expect it. It's not news. I am able to get up and keep going even through my tears. And I do like that part of myself. And so I think I think another something maybe we're talking about again has to do with perception and how we view ourselves and taking, not always seeing the negative in a negative light.
Hmm.
And it's too easy to do that, and we all do that, right? Why did this happen to me? If the universe is all loving, why am I suffering? And I always, feel for me that the universe isn't making me suffer. I'm suffering. I suffer. And it's a choice that I can decide. Am I going to suffer? Am I going to stay in bed all day because I have pain? Or am I going to get up and make a life? That's a choice. That's a choice I can make. And each of us has a choice that we can make. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's where resilience comes in. That's where not being a victim comes in. That's where understanding what the kind of life I want to live, the choices we can make that are enabling us to live fully in a more full way. And I keep choosing that. As we both stated, it's not always easy, but
Yeah.
it's a choice for me.
Absolutely. Which is, of course, the title of my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life, that I finally did
Oh,
say,
wow.
I'm going to put it
Okay.
out there, doggone it.
There you go. Very
Yep.
nice. Very nice. Yeah.
Jill Amy Sager and Guidance from the Universe. And this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan along with Jill Amy Sager. And I took on I'll call it the moniker of metaphysician because it encompasses a whole lot more. And I remember challenging a believer, if you will. And I say that because for the first 15 years of my radio career, I worked for a Christian radio station. And I was actually labeled by the general manager when I left as a casualty of Christian radio because I didn't toe the party line, as it were. But I remember looking the word up and I challenged the person I was talking to. I says, you know that Christianity is a metaphysical philosophy, right? And they said, oh, no, no, it's not. I says, do you even know what the word means? The word means beyond the physical. And in most every passage, let's say in the red letter edition of the New Testament, that's all he talked about was that which was not in the physical world or of the physical world. He lived in it, but he wasn't of it. Just like we live in it, but we're not native, and as far as that which animates the body. And so I felt very strongly in that regard. I mean, you talk about the different modalities that you deal in terms of sharing messages with people, whether it be through your book, Guidance from the Universe, or otherwise. My wife and I, my present wife and I, we're both Reiki masters.
Mm,
And we were taught about what this energy that we are going to be tapping into is all about.
mm,
And it goes to an area of even this aspect of choice and resilience as well as adaptation. And it talks, and I've shared this on other programs as well. It's great to have a goal. That's like I was sharing before about this, the new pope. I have anticipation of the future and it feels good. I have no expectation of what it's going to look like.
Mhm.
How do you address that when sharing messages with people? Are the messages more, shall we say, esoteric or metaphysical rather than this is what's going to happen to you and here and here and here and here and here? It's more a general. I don't want to say generalized, but it's not something that's set in concrete because, as we mentioned earlier, it changes from moment to moment, among other things.
Yeah. Well, my readings are really not even designed the way you're expressing them.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. Someone will, someone will come with a question, or they're in that place. Let's say, and this happens a lot. They're in a transition,
Mm,
and they really, their kids are out of the house. They're not sure about their relationship. A lot of stuff going on. They're close to retirement age. It's just an example of, one person's issues, they come to. It's like, and they're floundering. They're not sure what's going on or
mm,
what they need to do next. They are not finding their way. And really, in the just to give you using that as an example, that client as an example, right away, what guidance offers is just to be okay with what is. That's usually the first message.
mm,
It's not about fixing their timeline or changing their perception. It's about being okay with where they're at in the moment. This is their life. This is what's happening. And so, what I'm trying to say is that that's a lot of where my readings can start, not all, in helping people to just relax, right? Have patience, be good to yourself, be compassionate, be kind, be okay with the I don't know, be okay with where you're at. And from there, a reading can go to, well, let's talk more about, and what ends up happening, and this happens because of the universe. Again, my experience is that what I'm being shown about a person, a client, is their best. I'm seeing them in a way that they don't see themselves. That's not coming from me. That's coming from the universe. They do that for me too. They see our best. This is just who I channel. I don't what I channel. And so even sometimes a person will say, "Oh, I wish I could had an example on the top of my head. I don't." But like we'll use a word for themselves like, okay, right, it just came through, stuck, I feel
hmm
stuck.
hmm
And immediately guidance will say, we don't see that, we don't see that you're stuck, we see that you are in constant flow, whatever.
hmm
So sometimes it's just a word too that they can offer that
Yeah.
can help somebody change their perception. Now that's not to say that there are times that a client will say, hey, I'm thinking about moving to San Diego, um, maybe this place, maybe that place. And yeah, I can get a feeling from guidance, oh, that doesn't resonate or that resonates, or, that's a place that you won't grow and you're saying you want to grow. So definitely, San Diego's out. But again, I don't tell people that as a dogma, listen to me and, make your decision based on that. I'm offering an observation, helping them maybe, not maybe, but helping them. It's got to resonate with them. And I make that very clear. There are no wrong choices. Go to it doesn't matter what I told you or what the universe told you. If San Diego's where you want to go, go. And you'll figure it out, whether that's the right choice or the wrong choice for you, right? I always say that take what you need, leave the rest.
hmm
Whatever I tell you has to resonate with you. And if it doesn't right away, sit on it for a while, put it in your back pocket. And
Yeah.
if it's a total no-go, throw it in the trash. This is your life. The decisions you're making have to be yours. But I do, in general, feel my work, and this is why people come back, because what the universe is offering and what I have learned, which is also what I offer clients, what I have learned personally, my own stories, my own experiences, is really simply to help people open a door because we can close doors pretty easily, right? I
Yeah.
don't know what to do. And really, it's not about telling people what to do. It's just about offering the possibilities in ways that maybe they didn't see. And as I said, that could be through a word, through acceptance, where you're at, accepting where we're at.
Yeah.
It's always a good beginning, I think. We
That's
run so much, this. We run so much from our emotions. I'm generalizing, but
mhm.
this is what we do as humans. We
Yeah.
don't want to dig in. We suffer anyway, yet we don't want to sit for 10 minutes and feel all that suffering.
Hmm.
Do other things. We
Yeah.
or and honestly, what guidance again, this is all the stuff I've learned from the universe that has helped me. Something guidance taught me a long time ago, sit in the suffering. And I started to do that. I remember sitting once and I was so anxious. I have a history of feeling anxious because of my childhood and being scared,
Hmm.
hospitals. I was young and I didn't have emotional support from my parents. It's another story. I was on my own a lot to deal with my emotional fears.
Hmm.
And I just remember sitting in a chair. My body was across the room. And I noticed that. And I was like, wow, wow, kind of blew my mind. And right in that moment, I realized that it was me, like suffering with me fighting with me. Nobody was making me anxious. I was doing this. And I have noticed over and over when guidance reminds me to sit with my own suffering, that honestly, now I'm so practiced that it can change in a nanosecond, that suffering, because I can choose to stop it. And
Yeah.
sometimes it means I'm dealing with deep hurt and grief that I've been holding on to for 3 or 4 days that I have just been ignoring, but I feel worse and worse and worse. And when I finally sit down and really truly feel how much I'm suffering, really 9 times out of 10, I start crying for myself. I have compassion and it lifts. It lifts.
Mm.
The irony is that we're suffering anyway. And what guidance has taught me and what I now use for myself is to really sit with it, sit with the suffering. You're suffering anyway. Just sit with it, see what
Yeah.
happens. And as I said now, again, doing that has helped me to transform it in the moment and to have whatever emotion I need to have, whether it's anger or hurt or grief, whatever's coming up for me, to feel that and not push it away. And something else that guidance taught me, and I also kind of blew my mind, they said that emotions are the way to God. That
Mm.
we have emotions, humans have emotions, animals have them too, but we can discern what our emotions are. That's powerful. That is so powerful. And I have learned through guidance, and there's a chapter in my book about this, about emotions. I have learned through them to be okay. It's not,
Yeah.
what did they tell me? Emotions are neutral. They're not our enemy. They just are. And they're a huge part, they are part of who we are. So
Hmm.
why was I somebody for so long who just kept pushing my emotions away? I did that for many years until I learned different.
Well, the whole aspect of resilience is important, and we have the only way to release those emotions is to go through them.
That's right.
I had, following my father's passing, I did have a period of time of, quite honestly, of sobbing, the loss of my father. But my best friend of 53 years, and that was my schoolmate, his name was Doug, and he passed away shortly after my father did. And I haven't cried for him. I can't Not because of anything as a guy thing. No, it's because every time I think about him, I laugh because
Mhm.
we had so much fun together.
Mhm.
And maybe one day there might be a tear or two, but right now it's like, boy, I wish I could call him and talk to him. Sure, well, don't have to call him. I can talk to him anytime. But it's that visceral thing of being able to communicate back and forth and so forth. I mean, we grew up. I mean, I was born, like I said, in 1960, and of course, we went through. We met in sixth grade. We went through grade school, high school, college, and stayed connected throughout. He went through a period of homelessness where he called me. I had nothing tangible to offer him. The only thing I could offer was I said, "Look, you're still living there in Phoenix. That's your hometown. You still have a network of people. You need to contact one of them and say, hey, look, can I stay in your garage for a little while until I get myself back up on my feet?" Well, he did. He called one of his friends, one of our friends, whose name was Bill, who's put him up in his garage, set it up as a room, locked the garage door closed and that kind of thing. And he got himself back up on his feet until his passing a couple of years ago. And and we took a trip together and all these kinds of things. So we have to allow ourselves to go through them, those emotions, and the same thing is true too. Is that even those emotions are choices. We choose to feel that way. I know that it is true based upon our perceptions of the loss of whatever it might be, my father, my best friend, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm grateful that I had both of them, among others who have since gone on, in my life because they have made me, along with those who are still alive, the thousands maybe, they made me who I am. I'm beholden to all of these people. Beholden to all of the experiences. I'm beholden to the universe. I'm grateful for the universe role. And I do my best to stay open to that guidance. On this program, we talk about, we encourage people to take time during the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, started out as the year 2020, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still small voice, or whatever you call it. I call it my friend. And that still small voice will never put you in harm's way.
It
It'll
is.
challenge you. It definitely will. I've shared the experience of bicycling once. I lived in Phoenix and I bicycled through some farm fields, and they were a mile square. And so I'm bicycling along, and I'm getting this. Okay, up at the next intersection, turn right, and then go up to the next intersection, another mile. Turn left, go to the next intersection. Turn left, go to the next intersection, and turn right. You'll be back on the same road that you're on now. And I go half a mile past the intersection I was supposed to turn right at, and the impression would not go away. I turned around. I went back. I don't. And at the time, I questioned, well, what the heck was that all about? And I've since reconciled it. It wasn't that I was avoiding some accident or this or that. It was I was being tested. Do you really trust me?
Mm.
Really? Prove it.
That's that's really interesting. I have had similar experiences where I've made a decision about something and I'm very clear about it from my own small voice. And I agree with you what you said. It doesn't let us down because it is about love and it is about our truth and what's best for us, our own intuition, our own that small voice like you're talking about. And then it's almost as if the after I make that decision that I know is best for me, this happens a lot. Then I get a um I don't know how to put this. I get, yeah, like a test. I don't really like that word, but I get like a test. Like in other words, something is put in front of me to take me off of that decision,
Hmm.
to kind of uh, yeah, make me wonder about that decision. I think it's really funny when that happens. And sometimes I've gone for it. And then I learn, oh, yeah, wait a minute. That decision was right. I did that once with a job. I left a job I didn't want to do anymore. And I was like a secretary, administrative aide. And I said I wasn't going to do it anymore. I was going to switch gears and do something else in my life. And I was sure of that. And it felt right. My truth was true. I knew it down to my core. And I paid attention, so I quit the job. It was great. Somebody called me who I knew, said, "Oh my gosh, we need a secretary." This was somebody I knew in her office.
Mm.
There was the temptation. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, it was like I completely ignored what I knew for myself. I worked at that job for 2 weeks and I quit
Mm.
because, I realized through that quote unquote test that my initial hit was the right one. And sometimes, and I've gotten better at not having to suffer or test myself in that way. And I find it to be, you said, you're laughing at when you think about your friends. I think
Mhm.
that, I laugh when I think about the story I just told you, that it's gotten to the point now where it's like, oh, I recognize how much do I want what I said I wanted?
Yeah.
How much am I going to pursue what, as you said, is sometimes challenging? Change is sometimes challenging. Change is hard. Um, Wanting something better for myself is not always easy. I don't do it with grace. Sometimes I do it kicking and screaming. It's not
Mm.
always easy. I live with fear like all of us do. I'm afraid to, step off and do something new and, write a book, get a book published. I mean, these things are not easy. And yet a lot of times, the universe, myself, how much do you want this? And I think that,
Mhm.
again, we can make choice and it's not about making the wrong choice or the right choice. It's just about keeping yourself open to what happens
Yeah.
when you turn left or turn right, as you described, what happens? Yeah.
Yeah, I've termed right and wrong, if you will, as learning experiences or life experiences, if you will. There's no right or wrong. I'll get into a lot of trouble. I got into a lot of trouble once when someone asked me about my mistakes, and I said I've never made a mistake in my life. I've
Mhm.
only had learning experiences. I've
Mhm.
learned what works. I've learned what doesn't work.
Mhm.
And so it is a process that we go through. And folks, you can go through the same process, and you can get a little guidance by going to the website JillAmySager.com. That is the website we encourage you to go to, and get yourself a copy of her book. We hope you'll get a copy of Guidance from the Universe. Hope, hopeful messages
I
for
have a copy here. I can.
everyday challenges. Indeed. Absolutely.
It's already won best cover from Bedside Reading. I think it is a beautiful cover. I did not design it, the publisher did. And also too, I will say it's only been out since January. You can get it where all books are sold. It's being distributed by Simon and Schuster. And it's getting 5-star reviews. Amazon, Goodreads. I'm very proud of it.
In
And
Audible yet? Because I know you have a recording on your website, an excerpt from the book.
I do. I have the preface on my website and also one chapter. Not yet on Audible. I'm hoping to get it there, in 2020. That costs money, and it's trying to get that together. Hopefully by 2026. But it is on an ebook if
Mhm.
you'd rather read it that way.
Wonderful. Well, you and I will talk following the program here because I produce audiobooks.
Oh,
So we'll have a little conversation, just see what happens. But I'm excited about what has happened on this program with Jill Sager and Guidance from the Universe here on Tell Me Your Story. The program goes by very fast, and sometimes the time gets away from us, and the program goes on and on and on. But it's fascinating to talk with the various people we have here, like Jill Sager, about her book Guidance from the Universe. To tell us where in your library is this book? How is this your first or second, third, fourth? How many books have you written?
well, it's actually my second nonfiction. As I said, a professional percussionist, and I have an instructional hand drum book that was put out by Carl Fisher Music many years ago. So this is my second book, but I have articles. If you go to my website, my bio shows I have articles in various publications. Um,
Wonderful.
Writing is now what I love to do, and unfortunately, my drums are collecting dust.
I'm not sure how your neighbors feel about that. They may be glad about that. I don't know, but it's wonderful to have had a chance to talk with you for this length of time. Thank you so much for giving us so much time here on the program to be a
Thank
part
you
of
for
what we're
having
doing.
me. Thank you for having me. My
I do
pleasure.
have three final questions I ask all of my guests. Before I do, though, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., all following the news. Streaming live at AM 12 at richarddugan.com is where it's streaming live. We also are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. We're also on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. We hope that you will subscribe and click notification. We also ask that if you could leave us a tip, we would appreciate it. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And we also ask that you get a copy of Choices, 5 Steps for Life. It's available on Amazon. And on the homepage of richarddugan.com, there are two links, one to Amazon for the book and the other to PayPal to leave us a little tip. We'd appreciate that. We also ask, as mentioned earlier, to take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to stop, be still, and go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm place and listen to that still small voice. And with all of that being said, we move to our three final questions for our very special guest. And the first is, who is Jill Amy Sager?
Um, a human being going through life, trying my best.
What gets you up in the morning?
Coffee.
And finally, what was your best day?
Oh gosh. My best day. I feel pretty lucky because every morning when I get up, I am living in a really beautiful place. I'm in Oregon and I am so grateful for it every day. I'm looking at trees every morning. So I am
Mm,
grateful every morning that I live where I live. That starts my day after the coffee.
after the coffee. Wonderful. Once again, Jill, thank you so much for being a part of the work we're doing here on Tell Me Your Story. And thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be a part of your life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.